Imagine your houseplant, the one you've known for years, not just growing silently in its pot, but slowly learning your patterns. When you enter the room, it reacts not with movement you can see, but with changes deep inside, invisible to the naked eye. Could it be possible that plants know us in ways we've never considered? Over the years, scientists have discovered that plants can listen to the world through vibrations. The roots of some species grow toward the sound of flowing water, even when there's no moisture in the soil around them. It's as if they can hear the promise of life and move toward it. And they don't just respond to what's happening right now. Some experiments suggest they remember. In a groundbreaking study in Italy, researchers repeatedly dropped tiny Mimosa pudica plants from a small height. At first, the plants closed their leaves, their natural defense reaction. But after several drops without harm, they stopped closing their leaves altogether. They had learned that the threat wasn't real. Weeks later, when tested again, they still remember. This is learning without a brain. If a plant can learn, what else can it do? Some farmers have reported something even stranger. When one tree in an orchard becomes sick, nearby trees sometimes prepare their defenses before the disease even reaches them. It's like an invisible warning signal is sent through the air or underground through the roots. We now know that plants use underground fungal networks, nicknamed the Wood Wide Web, to send information to each other. Through this network, a tree under attack can send chemical messages to its neighbors, telling them to produce defensive compounds. But here's the twist. Some plants have been caught sending false signals. In competitive environments, a plant might warn its neighbors of a threat that isn't real, causing them to waste energy while it takes advantage. Deception in plants. If this is true, then plants aren't just passive green life forms. They're active players in the struggle for survival. And the more we learn, the more unsettling the possibilities become. Cleve Backster once left a plant hooked up to a polygraph for days. While he was away, the plant recorded reactions at specific times, moments when, according to Backster, he himself experienced sudden fear or stress miles away from the lab. If that's true, could plants somehow be connected to us at a level science can't yet explain? Of course, many scientists remain skeptical. They argue that these reactions could be explained by changes in humidity, temperature, or other environmental factors. But even the most cautious researchers admit, plants are far more sensitive and responsive than we ever imagined. Let's consider this. Plants can sense gravity, light direction, humidity, soil chemistry, sound vibrations, touch, electrical fields, and even magnetic fields. They live in a constant stream of information and respond in complex, sometimes unexpected ways. And what about human emotion? While there's no definitive proof, countless personal accounts suggest plants grow better when cared for by people who talk to them kindly. Maybe it's not magic, maybe our voices produce vibrations that they can detect, or maybe the warmth of our breath or subtle changes in the air affect them in ways we don't fully understand. But deep down, there's another possibility, one that's harder to measure. What if consciousness isn't limited to brains at all? What if life itself in all its forms has a way of being aware, each in its own way? Some scientists exploring plant neurobiology believe that while plants don't have neurons, their cells can still transmit signals, store information, and make decisions. These decisions aren't random, they're adaptive, shaped by experience. If that's true, then the plants around us are not just alive, they're participants in the story of our world. Think about the oldest living trees, thousands of years old. What have they experienced? How much have they remembered? And here's the haunting thought. Every breath you take contains oxygen made by plants. Every piece of food you eat depends on them. They are the silent foundation of your life, and they may know more about you than you realize. So the next time you walk past that quiet green presence in your home, don't be too sure it's unaware of you. It might be watching, it might be listening, and somewhere, deep within its silent system, it might even remember you. In the late 1970s, Japanese scientists conducted a quiet, overlooked experiment. They grew two identical sets of bean plants. One group was placed in a silent room. The other was exposed daily to recordings of caterpillars chewing leaves. Weeks later, when actual caterpillars were introduced, The trained plants reacted faster, releasing defensive chemicals almost instantly. It was as if they had rehearsed for an attack they'd never actually experienced. And this leads to one of the most fascinating ideas in modern botany. Plants can prepare for the future. They don't just respond to threats, they anticipate them. How? Through a combination of sensing environmental cues, storing that data, and altering their internal chemistry before danger arrives. In other words, they predict. If that sounds like intelligence, you're not alone. Some researchers have started calling it green cognition. But perhaps the most eerie research comes from the study of root behavior. Roots, in total darkness, don't wander aimlessly through the soil. They choose directions based on microscopic signals, following nutrient gradients, avoiding toxins, and even steering away from the roots of stranger plants while intertwining with those of their own species. In one experiment, two plants of the same species were grown side by side in separate pots, but their roots were allowed to touch through a mesh. When one plant was given more water, the other began to slow its growth, as if yielding resources to its partner. And yet, the same experiment with unrelated species often resulted in chemical warfare, underground toxins released, roots attacked, resources stolen. It's a hidden battlefield beneath our feet. Still, the question lingers: where does this awareness end? Could plants be aware of us in the same way they are of each other? Consider this unsettling case. In a botanical garden in the UK, a researcher kept a journal of a rare orchid species. Over several months, he noticed that the plant only seemed to open its flowers on days when he was present, not when his colleagues tended it. Was it coincidence? Or did the plant somehow recognize the vibrations, sense, or subtle cues unique to him? Science hasn't answered that fully, but patterns like these keep emerging. And then there's the matter of plant-human communication through ancient tradition. Indigenous shamans in the Amazon claim they learn about the medicinal properties of plants directly from the plants themselves. During extended fasts and ceremonies, they say the plants teach them in visions or dreams. To the Western scientific mind, this sounds impossible, even mystical. But here's the strange part. Many of the plants they use are chemically active in exactly the ways the shamans describe, without any prior scientific testing. Could it be pure trial and error, passed through generations? Or is there a kind of communication happening that science hasn't yet learned to measure? In recent years, researchers have begun experimenting with devices that convert plant signals into sound. By measuring the tiny electrical changes in leaves and stems, they can translate plant activity into audible tones, creating music-like patterns that shift when the plant is touched, watered, or exposed to different people. And while most scientists see this as a novelty, there are moments when the changes seem almost intentional. A plant responding faster to one person's touch than another's. A melody that changes entirely when someone walks into the room. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe we're standing at the edge of a discovery that will force us to rethink what life means. Because here's the thing, plants have been here for hundreds of millions of years, long before us, and likely long after we're gone. They've survived mass extinctions, climate shifts, and planetary changes we can barely imagine. And they've done it without eyes, without ears, without what we call a mind. Yet they adapt, they learn, they defend, they deceive, they cooperate, and perhaps they remember. So when you look at a forest, or the single plant on your desk, you're not just looking at a passive decoration. You're looking at a living system, older and more experienced than anything you can comprehend. Somewhere inside that silent green form, there's a process alien to us, but deeply tuned to the rhythms of the world. It may not think like we do, but it acts with purpose, and maybe it notices you more than you realize. The mystery remains: are plants just chemical machines reacting to their environment, or are they quiet witnesses to everything we do? For now, we can only watch them, as they've been watching us all along.